Okay, fuel is on and rich. Go flow. Okay. Okay, I got a blade, Brian. He's hot and ready to go. Contact.
This is the elevator. Pull back on it to climb. This is neutral flight. You ease forward to make a dive. You can see the rudder moving. I steer that with my feet. And then the ailerons, to make a coordinated turn, are also linked to the central control column in the cockpit. We never fly with parachute. My name is Brian Coughlin. I got into aviation as a little kid. My father was an avid aviator. He had a couple different airplanes, and he was friends with Mr. James Henry Cole Palin, who built this aerodrome here in upstate New York. Behind me is a replica of a Fokker D8. It was one of the last German airplanes to enter the First World War. It didn't have much of an impact on the war because it came out so late, and it had some structural deficiencies because of poor craftsmanship when they were being built in the factory. It has a rotary engine. As you can see, the whole engine spins with the propeller. It makes it a little bit of a challenge to fly, but not terrible. It makes sharp left-hand turns and wide right-hand turns. The pilots in World War I used that to their advantage. I built this airplane in 1994 from drawings and articles and photographs. There is not a complete original in existence. There is a fuselage in Italy, but that's the extent of the survivors of this Fokker D8. The machine guns in this airplane, because it was late in the war, were timed to fire only when the propeller was not passing through the line of fire. In the early part of World War I, They did not have the technology, and a lot of airplanes shot themselves down. They tried putting a deflector plate on the back of some of the propellers, and that worked a little bit, but after a couple of direct hits, the propeller would disintegrate and the airplane would plummet to earth. The unusual thing about this is it has only one wing. It's not a biplane. It's a monoplane, which was unusual in World War I. It has no wires that go out to the wingtips. It's skinned in plywood, which gives it its extra strength. So it's a very thick airfoil, meaning top to bottom the wing is very thick. It has no bad characteristics. It's a great flying airplane, and it is very noisy with the rotary engine because there's no exhaust manifold. A valve opens up and all the exhaust blasts right out into the atmosphere, which makes it very noisy. Also, there are no brakes. You can see this is just a floating axle. No treads on the tire, so on a windy day the tire will skid sideways on the grass rather than grab the grass and make the airplane go out of control. Also at the tail, you can see there's no wheel at the tail. It has a skid, a wooden tail skid back there that digs into the turf to slow the airplane down. This airplane has a 160 horsepower Gnome rotary engine that came out about halfway through the First World War, and unlike several other rotary engines, it has dual ignition, meaning there are two magnetos feeding two spark plugs in every cylinder. These two switches turn the magnetos on or off. The right magneto is on or off, and that's it. The left magneto is fed through this, which is called the selector switch, which increases the number of revolutions that it takes to fire every cylinder because the engine does not have a carburetor. This is wide open, meaning it takes 2 revolutions or it runs full power. That's 4 revolutions or half power, 8 revolutions or 16 revolutions, which is very low power. Well, the airplane will not stay in the air. It'll barely stay in the air at the number 2 setting anyway, and then back at 0 is off. So there is one magneto that's on or off, and the other mag is fed through the selector switch. This is the fuel metering, called a Tampier valve. There's no way to meter the air. Again, there's no real carburetor. This just has a needle valve at the back of the crankshaft, which is hollow, and it feeds the fuel through. It's pumped up through a mechanically driven engine fuel oil pump and is squirted into the back of the crankshaft and atomized through a little gizmo. This is the fuel valve on and off, and the only real gauges in the airplane are the altimeter and the tachometer. They're both original German World War I instruments.